Hey everyone, welcome to Sidetrack Adventures. This is Steve. Right now we're at the Cajon Summit on what used to be Route 66. When Route 66 was created in 1926, for years it was the main path into Southern California, and of course it was later replaced by Interstate 15. But the road that we're going to be taking today predates Route 66 by decades. This road was once a wagon road, dating back to the beginning of the American Civil War. Today, we're going to be traveling the John Brown Toll Road. The road we are taking today was the primary route through here between Southern California and the Mojave Desert for about 60 years. We'll only be able to drive the upper part of the road, as the lower part is no longer open to cars, but we will still be able to check that part out on foot. Alright, let's head to where the pavement ends. This area was home to the Serrano people for centuries before the arrival of Europeans, and nearly all roads through here follow paths that they used. The first European that was said to come through the Cajon Pass was the Spanish Colonel Pedro Fages in 1772. Though, he was in search of deserters from the Spanish army, so those deserters were likely really the first, but their names are forgotten by history. And if anyone's looking for a tire, for some reason there are a lot of them here. From the 1770s on, the traffic through here would only increase. And if you've ever driven through the Cajon Pass on a weekend, with the amount of people driving back and forth between Southern California and Las Vegas, you'll know that it never stopped increasing. Back in the 17 and 1800s though, getting through these mountains was rough going. While pack trains with mules and horses could get through, the first wheeled travel through the area wasn't until 1848, when discharged soldiers from the Mormon Battalion heading to Salt Lake City came through with a single wagon. And the wagon had to be taken apart to make it through. That's Interstate 15 to our right. We're going to bypass about 5.5 miles of the freeway. In 1850, an improved wagon trail was constructed on one of the pack trails called the Sanford Route. From 1855 to 1861, nearly all wagon trains used the Sanford Route, but it was extremely steep and narrow, barely wide enough to get through. This is where John Brown Sr. comes in. Brown lived quite the life. If a movie was made about him, people would think it was too unbelievable. He rafted on the Mississippi River, survived a shipwreck, fought in the decisive battle of the Texas Revolution, was a fur trapper in the Rocky Mountains, killed someone in a duel, and he claimed to be a psychic who saw spirits. In 1849, he headed to California during the gold rush, and by 1852, he was in Southern California. Gold was found in the Holcomb Valley in 1860, but rather than head off in search of gold himself, he had another idea. He and two partners petitioned the state for a franchise to build a toll road through the Cajon Pass. In exchange for building the road, the state would give Brown and his partners a 20-year franchise to collect tolls on it. In the spring of 1861, 30 to 40 men carved out the first graded wagon road through the Cajon Pass. And that is the road we're driving today. In case you were wondering what it would have cost to travel this road in the 1860s, for a man and a horse it was 25 cents. For a wagon and one span of horses it was $1, with each additional span being another 25 cents. Each head of cattle was 5 cents. Pack animals were 25 cents. Sheep 3 cents each. And a horse cart or buggy was 50 cents. We've come to a spot where the road is cut, and of course the road has been improved and repaired over the years, but this cut itself was likely done by hand in 1861. It's amazing to think how much work went into building this road. There was no heavy equipment. 30 to 40 men built this road by hand in a matter of months. Now the road probably looks a lot like it would have in the 1860s, but you could kind of see right in the middle of the road the remains of some pavement. This road was actually paved in 1914, as it was part of the National Old Trails Road, the nation's first ocean-to-ocean highway. And the road was also part of the Arrowhead Highway, which ran from Salt Lake City to Los Angeles. In 1926, 65 years after it was first built, this road was bypassed by Route 66. And while it would still see some use from time to time, eventually it was pretty much forgotten. Despite it being the best road through the Cajon Pass for its time, as you could see, it was still fairly steep, and early automobiles had a lot of trouble on this road. After this road was built in spring 1861, in December that same year, heavy rains destroyed the road and it had to be rebuilt. And that was only the beginning of Brown's troubles with the road. The toll house was in a somewhat isolated and exposed area, and in 1862, it was attacked by Indians. The next year, it was robbed by horse thieves. Though the road made enough money that by April 1863, Brown had bought out both his partner's shares of the road. In 1862, Brown had actually opened a ferry at Fort Mojave on the Colorado River, so he was able to charge travelers twice as they came from Arizona or Utah to Southern California. Once as they crossed the Colorado River, and then once again as they came through the Cajon Pass. We've come to another cut in the road, and while the first one was likely done by hand in 1861, this one was definitely done by dynamite in 1874. By 1874, the road was profitable enough that Brown was making improvements to it, and this was one of the steeper sections. So to make it a little less steep, they blasted this cut through the hill. Despite the improvements, the road was still considered to be in pretty poor condition, and the cost to travel it was pretty high for the time. From the beginning, people would try to evade paying the toll, and that's why there were actually 2 toll houses on the road. I'm not sure if the camera accurately shows how deep this cut is, but it gets to about 10 to 12 feet deep. For those wondering, this road is now called Forest Road 3N45. While Brown had a 20-year franchise on the road, after 18 years, he leased it to Jesse Tay and C.N. Lawrence, who had founded the Cozy Dell Ranch. They collected the tolls for 2 years. Then on October 17, 1882, the road became free for everyone to use. There's a train passing by up ahead of us right now. Around the same time the toll was abolished, that's when the railroad came to the Cajon Pass. And we're coming up to the railroad crossing. There are 4 sets of tracks here, and if a train happens to come by, which they do pretty frequently, you could be stuck here for a while. We are now going to cross over or under 4 sets of railroad tracks. The first track that we're going to cross over is the Union Pacific track built in 1967. Then we're going to head under 2 sets of tracks. The first, the 2008 BNSF track, and the second dating all the way back to 1913. Then lastly, we're going to cross over the granddaddy of them all, the 1885 track built by California Southern. There are some extra rails laying on the ground here. Or maybe these are damaged rails that got replaced. I'm not really sure. I guess that probably makes more sense though, because if these were new rails, why would they just be left off to the side of the road like this? But I want to take a look at the railroad over here and see if we could see a difference in the two railroad overpasses that were built 95 years apart. We'll see if the technology changed much in nearly a century. I kind of doubt it. I mean, I guess the 2008 overpass, which is the one closer to us, does look a little newer. It also doesn't look as solid as the 1913 track. The 1913 overpass looks like it was built to last. And I mean, I guess it has. It's been here for over 110 years. I guess while we're over here, we can go check out the 1885 track as well. That's one thing about railroad tracks, though. It doesn't matter if it was built in 1885 or 1908. To me, it just looks like a railroad track. I'm sure there are railroad enthusiasts out there who could tell the difference, but to a layman like me, you could have told me any one of these tracks was built in 1885 and I would have believed it. Apparently this 1885 track has a 3% grade at one point, which was pretty challenging for trains. So when the 1913 track was built, it has a maximum grade of 2.2%, making it much easier to travel through here. But here is the 1885 track, the original track through the Cajon Pass. Right on the other side of the track, we can see a lot more of that old 1914 pavement. Modern Highway 138 is just ahead of us, so the exciting part of our drive is just about over. But had we been driving this road in 1914, the exciting part would be coming up. I often get asked in the comments what kind of car do you need to drive down some of these old roads. On this one, there are a couple of rough spots, but in good weather, I think pretty much any SUV or truck can make it, at least going downhill. I wouldn't feel comfortable with the sedan, but that being said, while filming, a couple of sedans did pass by. I don't think I'd take that risk though. Alright, we are at Highway 138. The road did continue to the other side of where Highway 138 is now, but we're going to turn and head about a mile down the highway to reach the spot where the upper toll house for the road once stood. Right around here is where the road's upper and original toll house was located. This is the same toll house that was subjected to Indian attacks and horse thieves. And there's an old foundation right here, so it looks like we found the exact location. The mountains in the background seem to match up with historic photos of the toll house as well. This toll house was near a canyon that everyone would need to travel through, so it seemed to be a great place to collect tolls. However, it was isolated and there's lots of high ground around here, making it ripe to be attacked. Also, people quickly found a path around it into the canyon in order to avoid paying tolls, so another toll house had to be built a few miles to the south of here to try and prevent any toll evaders. There's still a little bit of snow on the mountains. It looks like there's another foundation over here. Based on the historic photo I've seen of this place, this looks to be where the main house would have been. But I'm not sure if this concrete is original to the toll house or if something was built here later. After passing by the toll house, those traveling from north to south would continue on into Crowder Canyon. Crowder Canyon is extremely narrow, and it was one thing for wagons to head through there, but once this became an auto road, that canyon was something else. We'll head to it in a few minutes, and when you see it, it's going to be hard to believe that cars were once traveling through it into the 1920s. And here is the gate blocking cars from going any further, so we're going to drive down to the other end of the canyon. We are now back on Old Route 66, and this is where Camp Cajon used to be. The lower toll house was a little bit to the south of here. This is a pretty cool place to stop, even if you're just traveling on Interstate 15. There are a number of monuments and signs here. And as we can see from this sign, National Old Trails Road in Crowder Canyon is just 0.1 miles from here. It's just right over here. This is the Pioneers Monument for the Santa Fe and Salt Lake Trails, and it was erected in 1917. I just wanted to point out one of the names of the people who helped pay for it. John Brown Jr., the son of the John Brown the road we've been traveling is named for. This is Crowder Canyon. The Pacific Crest Trail, the hiking trail that goes from the Mexican border to the Canadian border, travels through here. When the road was built, this was called Coyote Canyon, named after an Indian who was called Chief Coyote, though he wasn't actually a chief, who was killed in the canyon after stealing cattle from a nearby rancher. It was later renamed Crowder Canyon after a local farmer, Thomas Crowder, who lived in the area in the 1880s. Where we're walking now, this wasn't part of the road. The road crossed the canyon up ahead, and we'll be able to see what's left of the bridge in just a moment. In a minute, we'll also start seeing what's left of the pavement. People were traveling through this canyon long before the toll road was built. The old Spanish Trail and the Mormon Trail in the 1840s both went through here as well. And we can now see what's left of the old Crowder Canyon Bridge, which isn't much. The bridge was built in 1914 at the same time this road was paved, but I'm not sure when it was taken down. Even after Route 66 was built, people were still able to drive this road for a while. And from what's left of the bridge, you can really start to see a lot of the old pavement. The cars would have crossed right here and headed down the other side of the canyon. And I would have been glad to see this bridge because look how narrow this canyon is. It's hard to believe that cars were traveling through here in both directions. Now, granted, there were a lot less cars on the road in 1914, but this must have been one scary drive. You could certainly see why this road had to be bypassed. I have to wonder how many cars ended up down in this creek. Of course, over the last century, a lot of the road has slid down the hill, or the hill above has slid down onto the road. But just look how narrow it is right here. I wasn't going to head too far into the canyon, but we just ran into some hikers on the Pacific Crest Trail, and they said there was a rattlesnake on the trail about 1,000 feet ahead. Well, I think I've walked about 1,000 feet, and still no rattlesnake. For some reason, I haven't seen a rattlesnake in years. I must give off some pheromones or something that scares them away. I'm going to be careful going through these rocks, though, just in case. I've gone quite a ways into this canyon. I don't think we're seeing a snake today. If it wasn't for a piece of pavement here and there, you'd never guess that there was ever a road here, let alone what was once one of the main roads to Southern California. So that's our look at the John Brown Toll Road through the Cajon Pass. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and we'll see you next week.